The best kind of doors are the doors you have to explain.
Today, we do have a very special guest, Brice Self. Okay, are you ready for the next one, Brice?
So right off the bat, the store on the left, those screws in the deadbolt, I don't even know how that's functioning, I guess, depending on how long those screws are. Yeah, that's interesting. That's just a big, big no-no. And then I'd also be curious on that handle to be able to pull that plate off and see what's going on underneath there to see if, you could basically remove that potentially.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, usually you see this application in a double deadbolted version, but usually because you still have to get access to the deadbolt in some way or another. So like if in an emergency situation or something like that, you would see that. But it looks like they installed the deadbolt backwards because you would want those on the secure side. So no one could just take a Phillips screwdriver and walk into your house because they can literally take this whole deadbolt apart from the outside on there. So that's why I threw it out there is like, hey, if you see this, this is a really easy door for you to get through.
I usually carry at least a screwdriver for that very reason, just in case there's some door hardware that was installed improperly or something like that, where you can kind of open it up and be able to bypass it.
So that was the first photo, and they're both kind of entry doors. And so what do you notice with the second photo? What catches your eye?
Man.
Is the cylinder supposed to be horizontal?
Yeah, I think those ones, that's the standard orientation. It's like a residential lock, but you see it in commercial applications all the time, which is kind of funny. I don't want to bash anyone's names or anything like that, but if you look at the difference between the two different locks, because there's the deadbolt above and then there's the residential code lock underneath it, one's a little beefier than the other. Have you ever had to deal with any Medico deadbolts, Brice?
I personally have not, but I guess what I was seeing was how dirty the door is, particularly on the inside towards the latch, and it's just like really greasy and grimy, but the numbers don't have any grease or grime on there. So I'm actually kind of impressed that either someone cleans them or it was recently replaced. Because otherwise I feel like, whoever's opening that door where it's that grimy. I mean, I kid you not, I think it was yesterday. My wife was like, hey, we should probably clean, because we have a similar thing to get in. And she was like, we should probably clean them because someone could easily, I mean, you can tell it's just the grime on the buttons. And mind you, I was like, honey, I've tried to clean it off. It's like, I get it. This is what I do. I understand. I was like, I'll just change the code and that way all the buttons will be grimy at that point. So, what does it matter?
On previous episodes, we've seen where there's a pin pad of some sort, and it's obvious which buttons, like which numbers are pushed on the keypad, whether the actual paint or it's just the grease and grime that builds up from people's fingers, which are really kind of gross if you think about it.
Yeah, ours, I think down here in South Carolina, we're on the beach. So you got sand and pollen and everything else you can imagine.
Beautiful area.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I don't think it was supposed to be habitable as it stands because it's just a bunch of swamp and the mosquitoes are like bats. And I guess I'm brave enough to be here. So
I like that we have multi-factor authentication.
Yeah, there you go.
And then I noticed it seems like the door is closed and the door jamb has some exposed wood. Like perhaps there might have been an attack at some point with this lever lock, which would make sense as to why you would put a Medico deadbolt on there.
To keep the door closed, right? Like,
Yeah.
No, there's evidence of a potential break-in happening here. And, a lot of times we run into situations where people put a residential lock on a commercial building and they don't realize that if it doesn't have that standard, that grade 1 that you're looking for, it's not going to hold up to someone kicking in the door. And so whoever it was smart of them to throw in this beefy Medico deadbolt. Brice, I'm going to give you some homework. Look up
Please.
some of the old Medico commercials. They're fantastic. They like literally are breaking down doors trying to get in. Like Mr. T was a sponsor of Medico back in the day, and he was like, I pity the fool who tries to pick this lock, right? Like
love that.
It's a pretty high security setup, but I thought it was funny that it was mixed with a very low security, like anyone could have that passcode, right? That's one of the least secure ways to secure a door is with a PIN code, because you tell it to your kids and your kids tell it to someone else, or it's written on the jamb or the door frame, or just like some passwords, right? People just sticky note it. In a sense, that's just a passcode, but it's a really simple password to crack, right?
Yeah, I even know some real go-getters on the physical pen test side. They will, in the right circumstances, they'll try to get close enough to the door right when someone pushes in the pin on an external door, and then use an IR camera, or a thermal camera rather, to see the heat signature on the numbers themselves.
Oh, Oh, that's
Not
tricky.
me, not
That-
me, but there's some tricky thieves out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and-
So just give them all a little rub, you know.
Yeah, well, because depending on how sensitive it is and the temperature differential outside, it would dissipate as you touch them. So you would know it in the order too.
Wow, I just learned something new. That's fun. I have a friend that actually works for FLIR. I'm gonna ask to borrow some equipment.
Yeah, there you go. You know, you're talking about the more commercial lock and then less commercial lock, and then, you know, having someone like Mr. T saying, hey, try to break into this stuff. But just real random, I recently trained a guy to do some physical pen test stuff, and really awesome guy, go getter. He's a former Navy guy too, but he was Navy EOD, which is explosive ordnance disposal, meaning he's a bomb guy. So he knows everything about C4 and improvised bombs. So he can blow things up and then deactivate bombs. So I'm just waiting for someone to basically reach out to me and say, hey, we had this really strong stuff. Like, just try to get in no matter what, you know, and just throw a bunch of, and I'm like, yes, I got my guy. We'll try to go the covert way, and then we'll try to go the overt way and see what happens. So
Mia, I know you need to jump off, but why don't we give it a quick knocking score? I put these two up there as like a kind of a contrast, right? This could help prevent someone, and this is so easy too. So I don't know if even we want to give it a knocking score. I don't know.
It's a 5 because you got a bad one and a good one.
Yeah.
yeah, I like that. I like the 5 on the right. I think on the left, I give it a 9, just because that screw on the left looks a little stripped. So it might give me a little issue.
Yeah, I'm right down the middle as well. Like left is like not secure, but that's specialized knowledge. So I guess there is a little bit of security by obscurity there, because if you didn't know those 2 screws, you can take off and take the whole deadbolt apart. There's some security there, but it's not really secure. Also, there's a glass window there. So actually, that's why they did the double deadbolt. So someone couldn't just reach in and unlock it. You would have to have your key on the inside as well. They just installed it incorrectly. I'm putting 2 and 2 together with my own here.
You nailed it.
Thank you for sticking with us for another episode of Unhinged. Our doors are always open, partially because they're unhinged.